Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast, where we are here to talk yet again about a basketball team that I feel like has not rewarded our efforts this year to spend so much time talking about it. And joining me to do that, to engage in this pursuit yet again, this futile pursuit, one might say. The man, the myth, the legend, who put out, I have to say, so Ben Ritholtz. Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hey, it's a noble pursuit we're on together.
It is a noble pursuit. You put out, I got to say, your threads are always, I mean this when I say your threads are always great.
Thank you.
The Sims one, I don't know if it's more has to do with the player and the fact that like he's such a nice little pleasant surprise, or I just, the clips that you chose to exploit how Jericho Sims did specifically against Philly and Miami, but like he's been, we've seen little drips and drabs of this, I think, throughout the year. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. And I was like, man, this is a great thread. And I'm really happy that we have Jericho Sims. Not that anybody really wants, I don't know. We can talk about Jericho Sims. We can talk about anything, but that was a fun one. I felt like you really nailed it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, he's an interesting little player, and to get him at 58 is, I think, a great testament to what the front office is trying to do and the assets they're trying to accumulate. I don't know what the story is going to be at the center position next year, but I would not be surprised if he's a part of it in one way or another.
Shameless plug for what's today? Tuesday? For the Wednesday newsletter, I did a whole thing on, I feel like this is the 12th time I've written about Mitchell Robinson's contract situation since his rookie year. I'll never forget when I had somebody reach out to me when he was a rookie, and leak to me that like Dallas is interested. Dallas is circling, and like, the Knicks better pay Mitch. Otherwise it's, he's gonna, and it feels like it's been the same rumors like recycled again and again and again. But yeah, I had a whole thing, and like, I don't know if you had money to put on it. Do you think Mitchell Robinson's on this team next year?
No,
I say no too.
I don't think so. I don't get the sense that he's particularly happy in the situation he's in based on his too present social media presence. He's talking about ball movement and all sorts of things when he should just be maybe taking free throws or something in the gym. And I don't think, we've already had some reporting now that they haven't reached a deal. I don't know what team's out there that's going to give him what he wants, but the way Sims has kind of grown into it, they still have Noel for another year, hopefully a healthy version of Noel. I don't think they're not going to overpay him. He's not that kind of player. I don't think they're interested in playing that game. And he's a bit of an enigma. Like, he goes through stretches where he's the best offensive rebounder in the NBA by far.
Yeah.
Like no one was even close for a week or two there. And then he has games coming out of the All-Star break where he looks like a lost player. So we've seen too many of these iterations of the same cycle with him where you just don't know what you can count on. So I would say probably not, but I wouldn't be shocked if they found a deal,
Or, it's not like we haven't seen in the NBA. I feel like this is more prevalent in recent years, but maybe it's been going on for longer and I'm not as cognizant of it. Like teams signing a player to a deal that they know can be moved. And it's just like sign the player today and then, 3 or 4 months from now, figure out, maybe move them then. Like I would be a little shocked if they ended up just letting him walk and didn't get, and because at that point it's like, well, to me, that would be front office malpractice if you didn't trade him at the deadline for something.
Right, but what would it have been, right? I don't know what his value is at trade deadline. Like, what's Dallas giving? Dallas giving you a first for him? You think?
I don't think. I think Detroit would have given you something. I think Detroit would have given you something. I don't know what the something is. I don't know if you could have gotten Stewart back in the deal. I don't know. I mean, you're not getting a Detroit first any way, shape, or form unless it's a real, like a very, very fake first. Unless it's like one of the what was the first that was it the Sixers got for Nerlens Noel when they traded him to the Mavs like way back when, where they could put like first round pick on the press release, and it was like had zero chance of convincing, something like that. Right. But like, I don't know, if you could have gotten Isaiah Stewart, I mean, that would have been, I don't know.
You don't want to lose him for nothing. There's no question. And they've had opportunities probably to move him throughout the years, and it's not a good outcome.
No.
So we will see. Yeah. Maybe you sign him and you look to move him, or you sign and trade him. I know Jeremy's brought up that possibility before. Maybe, but it's discouraging the way he's kind of come out here, and you hope that he finds a way to tap into the Mitch we saw prior to the All-Star break a little bit more often down the stretch. Would be nice.
That would be nice. We'll talk about some more pleasant. Well, Mitch is going to factor in because I start meandering, get away from what we're actually going to talk about. So Benji, you were like, what are we going to talk about today? I'm like, why don't we talk about try to keep this as positive as possible. We'll talk about things that we want to see moving forward and things that we're actually excited to see. And Mitch does play a part in that, I think, to a certain extent, because he is still a young player on this team, and he is, there is theoretically still some upside there. But, just to put a cap on that part of the conversation, I was like, I'm looking at like what centers get who are his archetype. And obviously the first guys you gravitate towards are Jared Allen and Clint Capella. And obviously Mitch is not those guys because there's a level of consistency. And there's also, quite frankly, a ceiling that they've reached as pros that he has not been able to touch yet. And those guys are making $20 million a year. So the max offer that he could get right now equates to essentially 13.5. If the Knicks end up offering that and his representation is like, no, we want more. It's like, I don't know. I wouldn't feel great about paying him $15, $16 million a year. Especially when the going rate for someone like him is more like a 12, 13, Robert Williams, Rashawn Holmes, slightly different player, I know, but even like Daniel Gafford got $13 million a year. That was kind of a lot. But yeah, anyway, that's enough about Mitch. Let's start here. What are you most excited about for the next 21 games? Like, what's the thing where you turn on the Knicks game and you're like, this is the thing that is getting me to stay with this wretched franchise for another night?
That's got to be RJ Barrett, I think. And I think the way he develops, what kind of shots is he getting? What kind of shots is he making? The offense is clearly now running through him much more often. I think that there's been a very concerted effort to transition the offense a bit into his hands. And I think to positive results so far. Of course, that goes along with the fact that Julius Randle is now in, I would say, dangerous territory. Okay, again, we're going off the rails early here. What do you expand on that, please? I would like to hear you expand on that, because I would legitimately what was it, Sixers game. So we've gone from a guy who made a ton of tough shots last year to a guy who no longer makes easy ones. Like, it's fallen that far where there were two plays that stick out in the fourth quarter where he had a layup that he missed on with strong left hand off a roll that he should have made, and then quickly kicks to him in the corner, wide open, not a soul even closing out on him, and he wasn't close. And I appreciate what he did before the All-Star break in terms of finally kind of figuring out the role he has to play in this offense with Fournier and rolling more and getting more rim attempts. But I mean, his field goal percentage is plummeting before our eyes. He cannot make anything beyond the foul line. He's not making free throws consistently. I just think, I think his confidence is totally shattered. Like, I saw a guy who doesn't believe in himself anymore, doesn't know what he should be doing on the floor. It's just troubling. I know it wasn't the subject, but some of the shots he was missing were and nobody even cares to close out on him anymore. Like, this has been a shocking, stunning, extreme decline in terms of shot making ability that I've definitely never seen before. I don't know if you have. Maybe like a Markelle Fultz between college and the pros kind of thing. But that's like that was a physical, mental thing. But this is like, it's crazy. I mean, he can't make anything. He just can't make anything.
I remember I did a comp article or two on Julius last season, and I wrote, I don't know what I wrote a bunch of stuff, and then I think it was maybe Vork messaged me, and we were just bullshitting, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't mention Oladipo." And I don't know why I didn't mention Oladipo, because I was going like through specific parameters, and I'm like, you know what? If there a more obvious name in terms of like high pedigree guy, solid NBA player for several years, all of a sudden kind of goes to a new situation. And it's like, wow, this person's an MVP candidate now. What? Excuse me. And then but the difference there is like he had 35 or 40 bad games, whatever it was, that post all NBA season. Like those games were not good. He still made the All-Star team though. It should be noted. Maybe there was a little bit on reputation, whatever, weak East, say what you want, but like he did make the All-Star team and then obviously got hurt. This is, the crazy part though, about like to what you're saying about missing these easy shots. Like I always refer back to like his last year in LA and his year in New Orleans. He lived at the rim and was efficient. He was so efficient. And it's not like he was playing in like these crazy, insane offenses where it was just like easy look after easy look. Those weren't easy looks. Like it was a lot of self-creation. I shouldn't say a lot of self-creation, but there was like, he was doing the thing. Like he was being the guy who we thought he was going to be coming out. And now, I don't know. I don't know what they do with him, but we need to talk about it in the context of RJ Barrett, because like you said, this is RJ Barrett's team right now, and it's going to be RJ Barrett's team going forward until they trade for a star. And like, that'll be a great problem to have. But does Julius strike you as a guy who you want being the number 2 to RJ next year? He doesn't strike me as that in a perfect world.
No, not, and certainly not the way he's played defense this year.
Oh boy.
And he's
that were really, we said this was going to be a positive episode. And now you've just used the term.
Well, he's always been an emotional player. And I think sometimes his defense was overstated last year. Like I think he had probably his best defensive year. I know the metrics loved him. I think that was because he was in a lot of great defensive lineups and lineups that performed very well. He was so clearly better last year, effort wise, but even just like the way he played drop, the way he switched onto some guys, like there was like hope that he would get stops. And this year it's just that's fallen off a cliff too. So no, I don't want him around. I think I don't want to give him up for nothing. I want to get value right now. I'm not sure what that value is, which is why he's got to keep playing and try to figure this out, try to get back to at least the form we saw before the All-Star break. Hopefully he can. Yeah. I just don't have a ton of hope, but back to RJ, because we're trying to stay positive. There's been he's getting to the line a ton. That's obviously, that I think has been the most obvious change in this stretch. Like I think he shot the 3 well, but we've seen stretches of that before in his career. His finishing at the rim has, I think, been better and a little bit more varied. I think he's had some really nice right hand finishes specifically that I think I've always thought are some of his best finishes. I think he elevates better, interestingly, on the right side.
Really?
Yeah, I think he relies, or he's always been so left-hand dominant on his drives. And this is kind of just my theory, a working theory. Let's say I watched the games and I've watched a ton of his film, obviously, but I think he relies a lot on extending that left arm, and he has such faith in the ability to kind of scoop it in. Whereas with the right, he just elevates to the rim because he doesn't have that kind of extension with his right hand. He just kind of gets up there and drops it. And he had one great one on Embiid off an in and out dribble with his right hand. I just like the way he finishes to his right a lot. And I think he's doing more of that. But I think we've seen some stretches of that. I do think there's improvement. And we've always said that's kind of the bellwether with him as to how great he can be is how does he finish around the rim? He gets there so easy and so often that what he actually does in there is essential. And part of that, and I think the biggest change that we've seen is he's just drawing a ton of contact. He's getting to the line a ton. And the free throw percentage is not helping in terms of actually turning that into efficient production.
Yeah, I'm not worried yet, but if I had my druthers,
right. I mean, look, I wrote an article last year comparing him to Jimmy Butler after, you've spoken about this recently in your newsletter, after that clip where Jimmy's talking to him about drawing contact. And Jimmy's a really interesting comp. There are obvious differences between the two, and RJ's already a better jump shooter than Jimmy ever was, 3-point shooter. But Jimmy isn't a great explosive finisher. I think he has that reputation, but he's not. He hasn't been for a long time. Maybe very early in his career he was. I mean, if he was a crazy athlete, he wouldn't have gotten drafted. Oh, John, you froze on me. You froze on me with a very crazy face. Uh-oh.
I was saying, I don't know if you heard this. I was like, if he was a great athlete, he wouldn't have gotten drafted 30th.
Yeah. And
Jimmy Butler. That was the last thing I said.
Okay. Yeah. And you're right. And he's not an explosive athlete, but he's extremely efficient at the rim because he draws a ton of contact. He's incredibly gifted at drawing contact, and he makes his free throws. And that's a formula. It's a different kind of formula than, say, John Morant finishing at the rim, but it can be as effective if you can get to the line as much as RJ is, and now you can convert them into actual free throws. And for him, that's going to be key, because he's never going to be an elite mid-range shooter. I don't think that, he can become a good one. I think he's experimented with that this year, and we've seen some good signs. He's working on the kind of self-creation from three, at least off the dribble, a little bit adding variation. I think he's done that to some success this year. And I like that he's experimented a little bit more and branched out. He's
taking a ton more. That's the one thing. He only took 20 spot up threes, or not spot up threes. Pull up threes. Excuse me. He only took 20 pull up threes last season. He's already and I checked the stat a couple games ago. He's already taken over 60. So
wow. So I didn't even know it was that extreme. So that's you love that. And I don't know what I have to look it up on B-Ball Index. I don't think it's been tremendously efficient, but it hasn't been a train wreck either. It's been okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year it was only 20 attempts. I think he was at 30%. This year last I checked, it was 61 attempts. I think he was at 27%. So yeah, it's not what you love, but for a guy that there were really serious shooting questions about coming out of college.
And I think the catch and shoot stuff has maintained from last season. It wasn't a fluke. He's making his catch and shoot threes, which is massive for him. Yeah. At least at a pretty good clip, at an acceptable clip where you have to respect that shot, and then you can attack the closeouts off of that. It's not an obvious leap. I mean, I think I know a lot of numbers are getting thrown out. There's definitely some increased volume that's involved in this. He's still not finishing great at the rim over the stretch. But there are incremental improvements that you love to see. And there's just a kind of an attitude about it that I love. And I think, going forward, I think that's what we're watching for, right? Primarily is, can he continue this? What else can he add? How consistent can it get? That's number one storyline, I think, by far, and what will keep me watching these contests.
Barely contests. Well, to your point about that it's his team now. Over the first 24 games of the season, he missed. He played in 24 of the first 25. His usage rate was 23, which is right about, or at least this is Basketball Reference measures their usage rate. I've noticed a little slightly differently than other sites, but whatever. And then starting with the game, actually right before he went out with, it was COVID, right? Where he missed the games in the middle of December. Yeah. Starting with that game before that, it was the Toronto game. And then ever since, it's been almost 30. And it's not an insignificant sample size either. I mean, we're talking about, this is from Christmas.
That's a huge jump. That's a huge jump.
It's massive. And if I didn't know better, I might suggest that there was a conscious changing of the guard, so to speak, between him and Randle, where he was like, you know what? I'll defer, like he did last year. He willingly deferred. He was, I think he was probably, I imagine he probably would have liked to take a bigger role last year, and then the team was winning. So it just didn't make sense to do so. But if the team's losing, like if you're RJ Barrett, you're like, why am I going to defer to this other player who's doing worse than me in terms of efficiency?
And the thing, the thing I want to see, if there's a wish list in terms of what he accomplishes over the next, whatever it is, 20 games, I want to see the playmaking, because I
took the words out of my mouth.
I know it's in there. I've seen him make the passes.
Well, it's in there because we've seen it.
That's what I've seen him make the passes. I've threaded about all the different passes he's able to make: cross court, one-handed, right-handed, left. He can do it. But it has to be it's a process. He's just kind of finding his way as like this crazy high volume driver, a contact drawer, trying to finish. And now it's time, as we go here, to start seeing the floor off of all that attention he's going to start drawing or is drawing. Because I think he had 6 assists against Philly, I think. I didn't think it was a great passing game, even though he ended with 6 assists. I want to see 6 assists. Like I want to see that. The usage is up, his touches are up, his drives are up. Now let's turn it into other good things besides what you're currently turning them into. That's a huge step. And when we talk about him, let's say being one day a real first option, if that's possible, if he'll ever get there, that's a key. Finishing at the rim better is a key. Making free throws is key. And then can you get assists out of these drives and create 3-pointers and do all the things that great primary wings do, right? Can he do that is a huge step for me.
Well, Jimmy Butler, again, I mean, we're talking about, this is a comparison to a Hall of Fame player who, if his career had started 3 years earlier and he like kind of stays on the track that he's on, I think he probably would have been in the conversation for top 75. He didn't quite have the accolades to get there. But like, we are talking about one of the all-time greats. Never a top 5 player in the sport, probably, borderline top 10. Like, but that's the level of player we're talking about here. His first All-Star season, which was his 4th in the league, he was 25 years old. He was only at 3 assists per 36 minutes, which, like, again, it's not that. And this is not to say that, like, Jimmy Butler was only there when he was 25 and in his 4th season. So therefore RJ Barrett no, but it is proof that like you can go from that to where Jimmy Butler is now, where he's been the last 3 seasons, 6.4, 7.6 last year. It's insane. And this year, 6.1 as he's, been able to defer some of the playmaking onto guys like Lowry and what have you. So like, you could make a jump. It's certainly possible to make a jump, and he certainly has the work ethic. And just the only other thing I'll say in regards to the finishing, like, I don't, much like Jimmy, actually, he's never going to be a guy who finishes in like the 85th or 90th percentile at the rim in terms of efficiency. But with the volume, he doesn't need to be that. He just needs to be above the median. Like, give me 55th percentile in efficiency. And which is like, Jimmy's a little bit higher than that. But like, what I love about what the looks that he's been getting of late, I feel like we're getting away from those stretches where it's like games at a time or stretches of games where you're like, these are these like don't have a chance of going in. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen that. 100%. We saw that earlier this year.
Flings from the, like, floater flings from the left side of the floor that go over the rim to the right. Yeah, like those kind. Yeah, we've seen stretches where it's like, can he ever make a shot at the rim again against a good rim protector? Yes, and that's why the move on Embiid was so significant to me, because to finish like that and make a move like that on an elite rim protector, one of the great rim protectors in the game, that is not something you see often from RJ. And that's like, to me, was like an aha moment for me and maybe for him in terms of, I can get there and I can finish against guys like this. That was a phenomenal move. And just, this is the last thing I want to say on the foul stuff. I would always push back on like post games, especially when people were like, oh, he gets a terrible whistle, like the refs have it out for RJ. You're shaking your head. I never felt that way either. I was like, make them make the call. Like, great players make the ref make the call. And I didn't felt like he did that. Now he's doing it. 100%. I agree with you. And I always push back on that as well. He creates a ton of contact, but that doesn't mean that it's foul contact. It just means it's contact. There's a distinction there.
There's a difference. Yeah.
And he's now kind of figuring it out. He's using a lot of up fakes at the rim that are really smart. He's getting under guys. He's extending his arms a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like Harden does, and drawing fouls that way. Like he's figuring it out. And one thing about field goal percentage at the rim also is drawing fouls impacts that a ton, because if there's a lot of contact, and a lot of contact means it's harder to finish at the rim. By definition, you're getting hit. If that contact isn't translating into fouls, that means it's a difficult shot. When that contact starts to translate into fouls, now that's no longer part of your field goal percentage. You're going to the line and you're getting efficient points that way, hopefully. So it's all intertwined. Like, I don't think Jimmy's a great finisher. I think he's probably a better finisher than RJ at this stage, but I don't think he's a great finisher. I think the ones that he finishes, he's not getting fouled on. So they're easier looks, right? And so it's all kind of intertwined in your whole arsenal down there when you get down there. And I love what we're seeing. I hope it keeps improving and he keeps developing.
So that's a good jumping off point to kind of get to the second. I had a feeling we're going to spend a while on RJ to get to like the second half of this. So like, okay, ideally we see a lot of RJ. That's wonderful. Do you have it in your head of like, I want to see certain lineups with RJ. I want to see certain guys get to play with RJ. I want to see RJ play off of certain guys. Cause like I also included in the DM, I was like, we could talk about things we don't want to see. Does the fact that we're still seeing so much, I mean, we have to talk about it. Does the fact that we're still seeing so much Burks and I guess to a certain extent, like Fournier, does it bother you as much as it does some people never want to see these guys play another game in a Knick uniform again, which I wouldn't blame anybody who thinks that way. But like, how much are you in the camp of like, just put these guys on the bench and let's just see like RJ and the kids and that be it?
I want to see Fournier. I think Fournier has earned it. I think he's a frustrating player. He's bad defensively, all the stuff that everyone's talked about a million times. He's also shooting the hell out of the ball. And really, as I know people talk about really hot and cold and inconsistent, I really think that's more of a nature of shooters than it is a thing about Evan Fournier. Like, I think he's just a really good shooter, and shooters sometimes have bad shooting games. Like watch Duncan Robinson every night.
He went through a cold stretch, I think, Fournier earlier this year. Like he went through one cold stretch where it was right. Really but like every shooter does. Exactly.
Like Duncan Robinson went through a terrible stretch to start the year, even worse than anything Fournier went through this year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So like, I think he's given you what you paid for. Now, maybe it's more than you should have paid, but it's like, if you expected anything different from Evan Fournier, you didn't do your research. Like, this is who he is, and he's playing that way. And it didn't help that you paired him with a bad defensive point guard. That was probably and then to trot them out together forever was
Ben positive Benji.
Sorry.
You gotta read the memos, man. Jesus. We send a big memo. I should actually get like a KFS heading, like a
this is header. This team is just I've gone through these rants so many times. It's like second nature already. Anyway,
no, caught a nerve there because I've been. This is good. This will be the hill that I die on after Thibodeau gets fired, which is going to happen at some point. Is like the line of demarc, the fork in the road was the day they signed Kemba, and I would just love to have. Not saying it would have gone great, but I would have just been curious what the universe would have looked like, where they literally had signed any other person to do that job. But what we don't.
Yeah, it was a low risk move that turned into, as I think I've heard Jeremy say, a low risk move that turned into a high risk move when you kept trotting him out there.
Anyway.
I think Fournier helps because no one on the team creates more spacing than Evan Fournier. Like Evan Fournier is good for RJ Barrett. Like you can't leave Evan Fournier. The guy's a knockdown shooter. You can't leave him. So, he's done his job. I have no problem with Evan Fournier. And the only problem I have is maybe I wouldn't have given him $17 million for 3 years. But I don't have a problem with him as a player or how he's performed this year. I really don't.
Do you want to know, by the way,
can be
what Evan Fournier's effective field goal percentage has been in the last 22 games?
I don't know offhand, but I know it's been really good.
59.7.
Yeah. He's been one of the best shooters in the league this year. Is volume and accuracy combined? Yeah. He has,
Yeah.
People don't want to hear it, but he has. So no, I don't want to see him go. He can play as much as he wants. I mean, to some extent, I want to see more of Cam. I want to see more of, IQ, I think we're seeing plenty of. 27, 28 minutes, I think is fine. If he wants to play 33, 34, that's fine too. Like that's whatever. And those minutes aren't going to come at the expense of Obi anyway. So and I do want to see Deuce. You see, when we got on here, Deuce was like 9 for 9 from the field in the G League. He goes to the G League and it's like he's playing against toddlers. I've never seen stats like this. He goes down there and his numbers are, it's like he's Wilt Chamberlain.
I'm going to look it up. Wilt Chamberlain. It's great.
He's the best G League player in the history of the world. He's got to play. He's got to get a chance. And I know that I've heard you say, he'll get his chance at some point. Yeah, but you know what? Let's start now. What are we waiting for?
Listen, let me be very clear about this. My pushback on when people are like calling for Deuce is not, first of all, it's nothing to do with the fact that I don't want to see him. I said months ago, like right. when he had the couple of starts in a row, I was like, keep trying him out there. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't try this. The Kemba thing didn't work. It's not going to work. Give this kid a chance. My only, it was more of a devil's advocate position of like, I don't think that Deuce McBride is like going to cure all that ails this team.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
No.
But that's where I feel like sometimes people are like, that's where
it's not about results. First of all, it's not about results anyway anymore, unfortunately.
No.
As bad as that is. But it's
true.
Whatever. Yeah, I think we're on the same page. He needs to play. We are indeed on the same page. Yeah. It's time to play. I want to see more of him, but I guess that all gets me to the fact that Alec Burks still playing point guard for this team is outrageous. It's outrageous at this point. It's not good for Alec Burks. Like, if he was thriving in the position and like he was being himself, I mean, you can draw a direct line to the decline in his play this year to when he started playing point guard, a direct line. So I understand that you like a little size in your starting lineup. I understand you like to be switchable 1 through 3. I know you liked having Elfrid Payton and Reggie Bullock out there, and I get it. And we probably did underestimate how valuable it was to have 3 at least solid positional defenders who can switch 1 through 3 out there on a nightly basis, and how important that was to your defense. I get it. You've tried to make that clear in your press conferences, Tom. I understand that was really important to you, and it's a valid point. However, we are no longer trying to maximize our defensive potential here to try to win games. We're trying now at this point to develop our young guys. We're trying to probably, if there's a priority with Alec Burks, it's to rebuild his value a little bit. You know, if you want to move him next trade deadline, you want to get something for him, or in the offseason or a draft night or whatever. I think
that's probably, I think teams around the league have to be looking at this and be like, if this guy was still playing in his proper role, he'd be okay. But yeah,
right. I hope so. But you know, it's like, it's not healthy for anybody anymore. It's like an unhealthy situation that needs to stop. You need to rip off the Band-Aid here, get him out of the point guard position, play quick and Deuce there. I don't mind if Alec Burks plays 15, 20 minutes a game. On a good team, Alec Burks plays 15, 20 minutes a game.
Yes.
Like, that's fine. I don't need to see him for 30 minutes a night. And there's really no reason for it. And I, you know, as it relates to Cam specifically, and obviously there are contractual decisions you have to make regarding Cam. So you do need to get a good look at him and see what you got there. And I know you wrote about it a lot in your newsletter today. He's so interesting because it's
a good word for him.
He's really like the player. There's a really helpful player on a good team in there right now. If he wanted to be a role 3-and-D player, like he exists like at this moment.
The defensive tools that we see from time to time from him now on this team are like, again, I wrote it today. You can't teach the length. You can't teach the quickness. You can't
anticipation in the passing lanes. His hands. Yeah, no, he
has good instincts. Like that's the thing.
Good instincts, and the other stuff needs work. The point of attack defense, the help defense needs work. It's not. I don't think it's been bad. I don't think it's been that good. But like a good passing lane defender with length like his, who can switch, who can make corner threes and attack closeouts from the corners, which we've seen him do very effectively in the limited time we've seen him on the Knicks. That is a helpful NBA player for any team. It's just so interesting that there's clearly so much more potential there that he wants to explore, and he's stated as much that he wants to explore. And it's one of the reasons it wasn't working in Atlanta, because he wasn't happy with that role, even though that's the role they needed him for or could have used him for in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He wants more than that. I think talent-wise, like some teams should explore that. Like, I think it's worthwhile. There's a lot of really enticing skills in there.
Do you know who that team is?
Dribbler.
Do you know who that team is? It's the 2021-2022 New York Knicks, who
That's right.
5 games out of the fucking play-in, and
that's exactly right. And that's where you got to go now. That's exactly where I was going. So get Alex Burks out of there. And if you want to play a big at a point guard, you know who it should be? RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish together. That's what it should be. And see what the hell you got there. You have enough ball handling between Reddish, Barrett, and Randle to not look like a total incompetent basketball team when you do that. It wouldn't be like you're turning the ball over every possession. Cam Reddish is not that much worse a ball handler than Alec Burks. Like, just go that way. Let them handle the ball. See what you got in Cam Reddish and let him try. I mean, look, I am not advocating for let him rain mid-range jumpers and play out of the mid post. I'm not. And he took one shot that you pointed out in the newsletter that he made. That might have been a curse that he made it because it was a terrible shot.
He's going to take the next 10 and he's going to.
Right. So like, that's not what I'm advocating for, but do I want to see him in some high pick and rolls and not just on corner duty? Like, he's not Evan Fournier. He's not Quentin Grimes. Like, there's something more that he wants to explore and that the Knicks should be interested in exploring.
Yes, they should.
So let him run a little bit of pick and roll. Let's see what he looks like as an initiator. And think about the potential there. If both these guys can reach something approaching their ceilings, Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett with those bodies in the backcourt, switchable wings that can shoot it, that can play. You can find point guard X, whoever it is, whether it's Brunson or somebody else or a Brogdon, if you can trade for him, that's a really switchable 1-2-3 right there. Who can all shoot it, who can all move it. Like,
he's a name I expect to hear a lot. If the Brunson thing can't happen, which
he's such a Tibbs point guard. Like, you talk, it's like, yeah. I mean, with the size and the shooting and the playmaking, I think they're going to look at him hard. That's obviously Halliburton now in Indiana. Yeah. I just want to see that. I would love to see a lineup. I would love to see it with Grimes, but he's out for now. But something like Cam, RJ, IQ. I mean, I'd love to see Obi in this lineup, whatever, Randall, Obi in some center, or Randall and Obi, or what. I just want to see kind of Cam, RJ, and find, whether it's quickly, whether it's Deuce, or whether it's Grimes when he hopefully gets back. Like that lineup is really interesting to me. I would love to watch that lineup. I'd love to see how it looks.
I think what you're not stumbling on, because you're getting there intentionally, but what you have gotten to, or where you have gotten, is, I think, I don't know how many fans are frustrated with this in particular, but it is something that I have thought of in the back of my mind, which is that, like, okay, it is very clear this is a team without a point guard, but this is also a team with guys who can, as you say, handle the ball a little bit from the wing position, especially after you've traded for Cam. So, like, sometimes fate stares you in the face and says, this is what it's going to be. Well, guess what? This is where we are. You don't have a point guard. You have 21 games left to play around with in this season that did not go as you expected. And by the way, the guys you just mentioned, like Deuce McBride, Emmanuel Quickley, like, that's exactly the sort of role that I think you would envision for them as an NBA player, which is like, no, neither of them are good enough to be your, I don't want to get into the whole point guard discussion where it's like, neither of them are Chris Paul. Okay. Like, you're
not going to base your offense around their pick and roll games.
Exactly. But at the same time, they are still serviceable in certain areas at that position and can do certain things if they are playing alongside of guys who can bend a defense a little bit. RJ Barrett's been doing a lot of bending of late. And I bet Cam Reddish could probably figure out a way to do a little bit of that too, if you put him in the right situations. And I just want to see what those situations are, like something other than. Or
you got to let him try. And if he jacks a mid-range jumper, okay, Tibbs, now do your job and say, hey man, you want to handle the ball. Don't take that shot, but he's got to get the opportunities so that you can coach it up. if you don't even see it, then you can't coach it up. So like, man, like, and that's why Cam fascinates me. Cause like the position that they're putting him in is like the correct one. Again, if you want to win tomorrow, then like, Cam Reddish in the corner, making corner threes and then attacking off of that. Maybe getting a DHO. He's been really good at splitting those DHOs, getting to the rim, getting fouled. All that stuff is really helpful NBA stuff. But like, again, we're in a stage now where it's like, what else do we have here? How does that play into what we're going to try to sign him to? You got to find out. And those are the questions that they need to be asking. And I hope that the organization as a whole, coach and front office, are in lockstep here, trying to figure out the best way to maximize the opportunity that you have here. And that's how you got to view it. It's not a lost season. It's just a different season now. And you have to figure out how much meaning can you kind of squeeze out of it as you come down the stretch.
Well, Ben, a wise man once said, you either win or you learn.
He did many times. And the game tells you what to do. Well, the season tells you what to do, Tom. The season tells you what to do. And what you need to do is sit Alec Burks on the bench and let him be who he is. And you need to figure out what you have in front of you. Okay, Tom? Thank you.
Wouldn't it be great if he listens to this podcast? It'd be fantastic. I no disagreement. I mean, I think there's a valid, like, coherent argument that the organization should want, like, in terms of like the two-man combo, like, pairings. Like, there's a world where Cam and RJ should play more minutes together than any two players on this team for the rest of the season. That is not insanity in my eyes, at least, just from a perspective of like seeing what you got, seeing what these guys could do together. And yes, you mentioned it at the top, and I wrote about it today for a reason. It's like, I'm not saying that like a long-term partnership can't happen if you let him get to restricted free agency, but it's amazing how many of these things with these sorts of in-between guys, like Cam is obviously not a max guy or anything close to it, but like how many of those kinds of deals get worked out in the third summer before you get to the fourth year. And I don't know, maybe Cam sees himself as a guy who's $100 million contract waiting to happen. I have no idea. But I could see them like, if he shows a little something, shows the organization enough, maybe, lessen the years, up the dollars a little bit, something like that. I don't know. I think there could be something there. We mentioned Obi. Let's. I think we talked about everybody else a good amount. Let's finish up on Obi.
Obi.
Obi. Where are we at on good old Mr. Todd? I'm not out on Obi. I don't know why I say it like that. I shouldn't even have to say that. But like, it's been an odd year, I think, for him. Right. I don't want to say it's been a bad year. It hasn't been a bad year, but there was a part of me that, and again, look, so much of it has to do with opportunity, and he has not had an opportunity, and he has not been put in situations, especially since Derrick Rose went down, where he could really be successful. So like, I don't blame him. I don't know though. It's been oddly frustrating all around.
Yeah. I think there are kind of two different questions. There's the question of like, what can Obi be, and like, and what he like, what the best situation for Obi would be, and like what kind of, like, is he a starter level player?
It's a valid question to me. Yeah, it's an interesting,
because to me, there's no team in the league that would start him at the 5, because I think he's been better than we expected defensively. But to ask him to anchor a defense, you're not going to find a 5 that looks like him size-wise in the league that starts. Like, it doesn't really exist. If you're going to start a smaller guy at the 5, usually it's an elite defensive player. Like a Draymond obviously is the classic archetype for that, but they don't really exist. I mean, it's not like, so is he a starting center in the NBA? I don't think so, ever. I just don't think so.
No.
Now, that means he has to be a starting power forward. There are no starting power forwards in the NBA anymore that don't make threes. That doesn't exist.
Other than that play in New York.
Correct. And Draymond, I guess, when he starts and doesn't shoot threes. But again, that's an exception to the rule.
Yeah, he's the exception to every rule.
So and as he's been one of the worst shooters in the league this year, Obi Toppin. So what is he? So that is a one question to ask. And then there's the question of like, well, regardless, let's say he never makes threes and he's not a starting player. Okay. Well, how do you, at least for the Knicks purposes, make him into the best player that you can? And that, so, I think fans conflate those questions, because I think the fact that he doesn't have opportunity doesn't mean that he is right now a starting level NBA player, right? You can blame the coach and you can blame the system and you can blame the front office or the players that are around him, whatever, that like the reason he's not, but that doesn't, the fact that he doesn't have the opportunity, like we know enough, I think, to say like right now, at least, and until he makes threes, I don't think he's an NBA starter, which is not really that's not a good result from the 8th pick. I think you probably want at least an NBA starter with the 8th pick. Borderline,
when you could have, listen, we have to say it, when you could have had a guy who's a little bit, who's whatever the next level up is from NBA starter, who is staring the Knicks in the face at that spot.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
It's not a
that
good
hurts.
result.
Look, that hurts. And I still, that said, I still think there's a really good player in Obi Toppin, in the skill set, in the mindset. I like the player. And there are so many things that the Knicks can do to help him along to whatever his ceiling is, to help him reach it. And they're not doing those things. And that starts with, at least any version of Obi Toppin would be playing some 5, even if he wasn't starting at the 5. So you do, again, another thing that you have to see now, and we saw it a little bit more at it because of foul trouble in the Philly game, and not because they did it intentionally, but like you want to see Obi play the 5. You want to see Obi and Randle play together, and what that looks like. You want to let him try to protect the rim, see what it looks like. You want to, and I mean, it's not going to happen, but you'd love to see them experiment more with switching. And see what that looks like. Is that a way that you can play him at the 5, and especially if you have a bigger lineup in there, like an RJ Cam Burks or an RJ Cam Grimes when he's there? Can you switch a ton and still have enough size at the back line when you switch that you can survive on the boards and you can survive and help? Questions. These are questions that you should be asking and exploring with him now. Now's the time to do it. Like you got to answer some of the questions that you have about him, and you got to let him roll. You got to see what it looks like when they're 4 spaced out around him, because that has always been his NBA destiny, is to have 4 spaces around him. Ideally, as we've spoken about on previous podcasts, it would be a 5 who can protect the rim and spread the floor around him. But the Knicks don't currently employ that player. So
yeah, but like you can go get, I mean, I don't know who's it's going to be this summer. I don't, there's always a Dwayne Dedman or a Kelly. Yeah. I know Kelly Olynyk is not a floor space, or is not a rim protector, excuse me. But like there are enough of these guys out there now where you can go and find one and sign that person to a contract that is not going to kill you. Like,
right. But in the meantime, and again, you want to learn. This is a learning time for the Knicks. It should be, and I want to see what it looks like when he plays with Randle and you spread Randle. God, Randle's not a floor spacer right now either, but theoretically, I suppose he is. And I want to see what it looks like when Obi's rolling with 4 spread. I think that could look really good. I think that's his best utilization as a basketball player right now.
That's his destiny let's just say it, that's his destiny on a winning team. Like, I think, is it too much already with not even through year 2 to be like Obi Toppin is never going to be a starter on a contending team? Maybe it's a bit much. Like,
I think it's early. I'm pretty comfortable saying if he's going to be a bad 3-point shooter, I think that's true. They
would have to, I mean, I don't even know what the team
would have to be an extremely specific set of circumstances that would.
Yeah. Like if they luck into Chet Holmgren next year and Chet Holmgren, puts on 50 pounds and becomes that sort of player, can you slide Obi there at the 4 and make it work for 25, 30 minutes? Yeah, you can, even if the shooting never. And I think, by the way, the shooting will get better. I think this year has been a year from hell for him from deep. I mean, look, if Emmanuel quickly could shoot under 33% from 3, which he is right now, barely, like Obi Toppin shooting 20% from 3 is not like shocking.
And he was 30% last year, which we thought was so bad then.
Yeah. Anyway.
And the other thing I'd say about his shooting is Tibbs gets a lot of flack, and I think in this season, rightfully so in a lot of ways. including how he handles Obi, in terms of, as I've spoken about, the opportunities that he gives him on the floor, how much he screens with him, how much he doesn't. I don't think he's maximizing him, but at the same time, I've never seen like Tibbs isn't clearly Tibbs is okay with him shooting these threes. Like he's not. Yeah. I mean, he gets upset at him for shooting threes sometimes when they're not, like when they're above the break or contested. Like you can see him get upset. But an open corner three, like he's not like. He knows he wants Obi to take those shots. He's never told him not to take those shots, even though it's been really, really tough go. And even though that shot is not a good shot right now, again, if you wanted to win this game, I'm not sure that an Obi corner three is a good shot, but like, I think to some extent, at least Tibbs understands like that's a really important development for him. And some of that's on Tibbs because he's put in the corner a lot and that's kind of the role he's playing. But at the same time, again, I think any player of Obi's size needs to be in the corner sometimes. That's something that he's going to have to develop at least to reach his ceiling. If he never does develop that, then he's a role player in a very kind of specific bench unit. And I think they're hoping for more. So it's, I want them to experiment more. I also want him to keep shooting threes because I want him to start making them and get some confidence going into next year. And I think he's capable. And he was a pretty good shooter in college, and he was 30% last year, and his free throw shooting is pretty decent. Like there are a lot of reasons to think that the shooting will come around. And I just, you want to see him in context where you can learn something about what he can do and maybe figure out the way you want to use him in the kind of the more ideal setting next year.
That's very well said. I'll end by saying this. I love me some Obi Toppin, but I think for the reasons that you just discussed, if you're asking me like right now, like what is the unit, what is the lineup that's going to get my blood pumping the most for the rest of the season? Honestly, I don't think it includes Randle or Obi. I think it's go a little small. You're probably not going to be able to do this against opposing starting units, but like give me Cam and RJ and Grimes, assuming Grimes gets back and he's healthy, like we want that. And pick quickly or Deuce, give me one of those two guys. Like, and I guess, you want to throw Obi in at the 5 with that group. Like, that's fine. But like, I don't know. I kind of want to see them with, hey, we'll end where we started. Throw our boy Sims out there, right? With that group, set some hard screens, get guys going downhill, like
jumps very high.
He really does. He's a large man who jumps very high.
Big afro, and he jumps very high. There's something aesthetically pleasing about watching Jericho Sims jump because there's like a lot of hair going straight up in the air. He's big arms.
He's built like a brick shit house. Come on, man. Like, that dude is ripped.
The crazy thing is like we talk about him like, and he's the same age as Mitch.
I know. There's 6 months separating them. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens to them. All right. Thank you. You've been as always. I know how tough it is with you. You have the same time constraints that I do. So I appreciate this. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Sure. I just put out an article on the Strickland about actually comparing this team to 40 years ago. The Knicks had a very interestingly similar 2 seasons where they severely overachieved with Michael Ray Richardson leading the way and won 51 games out of nowhere. And then had a terrible season the next year. And that was the famous "the ship be sinking" line from Richardson. That was 40 years ago, Christmas Day. And there are a ton of parallels. So I kind of explored that in an article for the Strickland. It's really interesting. I think there are a lot of parallels between Holtzman, who was the coach then, and Tibbs as kind of these highly respected, accomplished, older, stubborn coaches. Although, of course, Holtzman won a couple times, won 2 championships where Tibbs is not, but there are definitely parallels there. Kind of the lack of superstar talent, but you had some really good players, and I think there are some lessons to be learned that I go through. So that hope give that a read for sure. And as John mentioned already, the Knicks film thread on Jericho Sims I put out kind of exploring every aspect of his defense. I didn't get into his offense because I haven't seen much other than screen setting. He doesn't touch the ball.
Good, nice screens though.
But he does set good screens. Yeah. So check that out. And Knicks film threads come out, if not every game, then after every couple, where I can kind of detect the theme and put out some interesting thoughts on different players on this team. I think over the course of the next, as the season winds down here, I'll be focused more on kind of player development as opposed to like strategies, or kind of like bigger picture things. I think that's kind of as we've been talking about, that's the goal now of the season, is develop players and see what you have. So you keep an eye out for those. And otherwise, I'm on my Twitter account at Ben Ritholtz NBA, putting out stuff all the time. So just give me a follow if you aren't following me already. And that's about it.
So hold on, I'm about to let you go, but you focused on the 79-80 season or the 80-81 season?
So I focused on the 80-81 and then the 81-82. So
okay, so the 80,
it's actually like the parallels are. It's really interesting. The parallels are exactly 40 years ago to each season, where they were a really surprising 4 seed. It's actually, I mean, you can read in the article, they were a 4 seed.
I can't wait to read this.
Got home court advantage, lost to the 5 seed. It was a 3-game series. They lost to the Bulls 2-0. And their 2 best players, who were Richardson and Bill Cartwright, who was just drafted by the Knicks, had terrible series, which is field goal percentage wise, kind of like RJ and Randall did. It's so funny. Because I wrote about Bill Cartwright in the 75 greatest Knicks. I forget exactly where I put him. I think I had him in the like 20 or 21 or so. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know about Bill Cartwright, go look up like Bill Cartwright's accomplishments with this. Was he an All-Star his rookie season?
He was an All-Star his rookie season.
Yeah, he was the real deal.
It was that's why I asked 79-80. They actually got 2 guys in the All-Star game. They got Cartwright and Michael Ray Richardson. Like, right. You could really talk yourself into the Knicks having at that time one of the best young cores in the league. But just what reminded me of it was his field goal percentage. And again, Bill Cartwright is a guy who, on the volume that he shot it and the amount of shots he took, he's the best. He's the most efficient scorer in Knicks history, and it's not close. But that series that you're talking about, he could not hit the far side of a barn. Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard. It was only 2 games, but yeah, they were both. I mean, Richardson shot, I think, 22% in the 2 games. He was a train wreck, and it was bad too.
Which I think Randall shot 29% in the Atlanta series, something like that. Yeah. I was struck by the parallels, so I had to write about it. So it is interesting to kind of look at, and ultimately the conclusion I came to was, look, how did that team? They had that surprising season, which was really fun. They kind of fell apart, and they fired Holtzman, which unfortunately may be where we're headed here with Tibbs. And what saved them? Well, until 1985, they drafted a guy named Patrick Ewing, and ultimately. Ultimately, that's where this has to end one way or the other, is you get that guy, whether it's drafting him, whether it's trading for him, whether it's signing him. We got to find that guy. We got to find the Ewing to actually take this team from maybe they're pleasantly surprising, maybe they're disappointing. Ultimately, if you want to be great, you want to have a championship window, you want to have sustained success, you got to find it through that guy, right? I mean, that's really that's the ultimate reality here, and the end game is to find that guy. That is the end game. And hey, lottery's only how many months away? You never know, Benji. You really just do never know. Got to freeze that envelope. The time has come, Adam Silver. Freeze the envelope. All right, that's it. I signed us in, so I'm going to sign us off. Andrew, again, I apologize if I'm not supposed to be doing this with Benji, but we do this with Jeremy, and Benji's now a KFS full-time employee. So hey. I think I could do it. Okay, Benji Ritholtz, thank you very much. Go check out the article on Strickland, and obviously check out his Knicks film threads, which are amazing. And everybody out there, thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We'll be back with you for more fun and games very soon.